All right, let's look at Boeing. It looks like they, okay, so they had Boeing Capital. It looks like, yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I mean, the only thing that matters is your growth. No growth, no product, no company, it's shit, it's dead. In the startup world, the only thing that matters is growth. That's it. There's nothing else that matters. What is your monthly or annualized growth? That's it. Zero else matters. Product doesn't matter, the ASP doesn't matter. You can have a product that's $10, it's fine. You can have a product that's costs $1 million. None of that matters. What matters is it growing or is it shrinking? If it's growing slowly, that's also as good as dead. It has to be growing and has to be growing quickly. Does it scale? That's an important question, but I don't know that it's like, you calculate month over month. Every month has to be more than the last month. If you're not doing that, just give up. All right, so now we've got more years of Boeing. Yeah, look at Figma and Canva. They're pretty cheap products. So they used to do 60 billion in airplane revenue? Wow. I think Boeing might be cheap. They will get these problems under control at some point. I hope. I got distracted talking to a business rookie. Trying to give some advice to a youngin, arrogant youngin. We have Godel, Needs. Those are our two principal products. Dr. Gupta is like this long-term experiment of, will medicine move to AI? I'm 41. All right, let's keep looking here. 16, 730. Wow, they used to move a lot of 737s. Look at this, 490, 529, 580. And then they dropped to like near halt. And then they went back up. Yeah, I think we're gonna roll out a student thing, for sure. Our company's called DL Software. I think I've heard of Trade Zero. Okay. So if Boeing gets back on track, it could be very cheap stock. Let's take a look. But one question is like, if they're not delivering planes, who will? Who is? Like, can they really get back to selling 500 planes a year? Clearly the market is satisfied by somebody else. That or like, there's just no planes. Yeah, I want to look at Airbus's deliveries, obviously. But like, these are long-term delivery schedules, right? These are not like, you order the plane and get it next week. DL stands for deep learning, keep it on the down low. Take your pick. So yeah, plane deliveries for Boeing is well below the peak still. And I'm guessing they have the quarterly numbers that I can look at as well. Okay, so this does look like it's a net number that goes down. So it does look like the firm orders for 737 are at a peak. That's pretty exciting. Hi, Sophia. Martin at DL dot software. I don't raise capital for anybody else, but you can send me pitches or whatever. But I'm very selective about what I'll invest in. I don't really like to invest in startups. It's not my skill set. Investing in startups, you need deal flow. You need time to evaluate all of them. It's funny. I have a friend who is a multi-billion-dollar tech startup, and he's an investor in my company. And he emailed his friend about my company and said, "Oh, you should invest in Martin's company." And this woman, this is in the morning. This woman said, "I can be at your office when is good for you?" And I said 5 o'clock. She came right then at 5 o'clock. Knew nothing about my company, knew nothing about my business. That's what it takes to succeed in startup investing. Like, you have to have the network so that you see cool deals, and then you need to be like on top of it, because a good deal will like go out your door to another company. Just very quickly. So yeah, there's a lot of that, like just rapid response and like availability to get into deals. And then sometimes you need a lot of capital. Like, let's say, there's a hot deal, and they want $1 million check. You want to do 20 of these deals a year. You need some capital, and these are risky deals. So to me, like, startup investing has just never been my jam. One day I don't know. One day maybe I could do it, but right now a lot of people don't want me on their cap table as well. I'm for a bunch of people, I'm kind of I was early to a lot of hot deals, and then they were like, "Oh, Martin Shkreli, nah, we don't want his money." I'm just like, okay, fuck you. I think there are investors that don't care. They've made enough money that they'll invest with whoever the fuck they want, and nobody can tell them shit. And that's the kind of investors I deal with. If it's an investor that's like, "Oh man, I don't know what people will think if I invest with Martin," I don't want to deal with that person. I don't even want them in my deal. I want somebody who's just like independent. They can do what they want. They don't have to beg some investment committee for like some weird access. All right, so let's keep looking at Boeing, and I'd really like to wrap this up because I've been looking at this thing for like 2 hours, and I don't want to ignore chat because that's kind of annoying and disrespectful, but I also Oh, look at that. They had much higher margins at one point. Yeah, this is a cheap stock. It's going to take a while for it to turn around, probably. But like, this is an obviously cheap stock. Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't have this in your portfolio, to be honest, because like, all they got to do is get their business back to where it was in 2016. It's just a question of how patient can you be, because I don't think Boeing's. I mean, they're on the mend, but like, it's going to be a while before they turn around, because it's that kind of long-term business. And it's not. The funny thing about the stock market is, if a process like a turnaround is going to take a long time, the stock market is a discounting machine. As long as that process is certain, the market will discount it immediately, because the market's very smart. It's a very strange phenomenon, but it is the case. Sometimes the market has a little myopia, and it's not as smart as it looks, and that's for us to take advantage of. But in general, the market's very, very quick about like, oh, okay, there's going to be a turnaround, and the stock will just double. And you'd be like, yeah, but the turnaround was supposed to happen over like 10 years. Market don't care. Market's going to discount that shit right now, as long as it's certain. If it's uncertain there'll be a turnaround or not, different story. And if you don't know when the turnaround's going to happen, it's going to take forever and ever, different story. But let's keep looking. So they have peak margins, gross margins 19%. That's crazy. All right, there's free cash flow right here, or cash flow from operations. Look at that. At one point, oh, did I skip over the other years of cash flow? Oh, I'm such a bum. I was so distracted. 10 billion, 13 billion, 15 billion. CapEx. All right, so they had 14 billion peak free cash flow. So that's trading at 10 times prior peak free cash flow. Yeah, it's an okay stock. Some people like the safety of a big company that's got like this big brand, and Boeing has that. And I think that you could probably buy this stock and just forget about it, that you even have it for the next like 10 years or 5 years or something like that, and you could probably just do fine. If you're like a really active trader, you know, I hate giving like buy the stock type advice, because like one of the problems is, one, I mean, every investor is wrong a lot. Like, you don't just there's no investor that only makes money. You get lucky, you get unlucky, shit happens. It's just not that easy. You know, if I'm right 60% of the time, I'm thrilled. Somebody yesterday was criticizing me over a stock pick I forgot I even made. I don't even know for sure if I made it. And I was just like, look, man, there's nobody on the planet that can give you stock picks that work all the time. Even on Wall Street, even Steve Cohen, even the best of the best. This is not happening. Nobody's that fucking good. Nobody will ever be that good. You know, so get that out of your head. So if you get a stock pick from somebody, you got to be pretty cautious about what that means. It doesn't mean drop everything and go do what they say. It means, you know, maybe I'll buy a little bit, maybe I'll do some homework, maybe something like that. It's certainly not, you got to be crazy if you just want to go do what they say. Go all in. That's just nutty. Nobody should do that. And this is what the process looks like. I mean, you gotta look at hundreds of stocks before you buy one. Does that sound fun to you? If it sounds fun to you, do it. But if it doesn't sound fun to you and you think that sucks, you're in the wrong game. Being in the stock market, it's like going through a garage sale. Axon? Who's Axon? You're talking about Axovan from a million years ago? Working in the markets is like going through a huge garage sale that never ends. A never-ending garage sale. And you have to be happy at how big the garage sale is. Ideally, you want it as big as possible. And you're going through each stock, each little trinket in the garage sale. And you're looking for the one trinket that they mistakenly left out that's worth a ton of money. You know, sometimes there's these like, I don't stereotype them. It could be men, they could be women, they could be young, they can be old. Maybe it's a little old lady in my head, but it's whoever you want in your head. And they're just going through all this rubbish, basically. And then they find this one thing, and they're like, aha! This is a official what is that, those things called Swarovski? Or it's an official Fabergé egg. Imagine that, the Fabergé egg. You see one of these? And it's sitting there for 20 bucks. It was just passed down, and it's worth millions. I need to know this was an official 1900. Look at this thing. And you just look at that, you know it's worth something, right? So you have to peruse each one of these very carefully. And you might find the Fabergé egg. But if you just go to the garage sale, and you see 5 things, one of them is GameStop, and one of them is AMC. And you see a bunch of people crowded around the AMC. But it's dog shit. It's literally, I don't know, this. It's a vitamin bottle. But everyone's crowded around it, and they're looking at it, and they're saying, wow, look at this vitamin bottle. It's only $20. And over there's a Fabergé egg sitting there. It's worth millions, and it's $5. But the row of things that you have to examine is enormous. There's thousands of things. And you got to go through each one. And then if you have the patience and the time to go to the Fabergé egg one, you can make millions. But if you're stuck on the AMC one, or you get bored after you look at 5 or 10 of these, you know what? There's no Fabergé eggs here. I'm done. I can't look through all these. That's why many investors, the best thing they can do is have a clear schedule. They have to have the freedom to look at as many stocks as possible. If your day is spent going to this meeting and that meeting and this meeting and that meeting, you have a ton of distractions. You can't be a great investor. You need basically all day and all night to be able to look for the Fabergé egg, look through the garage sale. And needless to say, if you don't like looking and examining things closely, this isn't the job. Okay. One of the tricky parts of Boeing is that they never were really operating at the scale they were operating at until they fell from grace. So that kind of makes it trickier to analyze the company because it's really hard to know. Like if they had decades where they were making that many planes, it'd be fine and you just jump into the stock and ape in. But they never really were at that scale ever, right? So like they grew, like in 2011, revenue was just 36 billion. So it wasn't like they were killing it, you know? Oh, wait a second, actually. I might have this wrong. This is just the airline revenue. I take it back. Okay, so they did have a period of time. What I said is still valid, but let's take a look. Like they only have had a decade, 15 years, where they were selling that many planes. But the defense business is like, I wonder if that defense business is worth, I mean, they have a lot of competition now with Anduril. Oh, they used to break out defense more carefully. Military aircraft, network and space. And services there. That defense business is very stable. Okay, so there's revenue for the last 12 years. $69 billion, growing to 100, and then falling to, wow, fell a lot, to 58, which, I don't know, it was 10 years ago when they had that much revenue, and now slowly going back up. Sometimes they call it kitchen sinking. But in their very best year, they generated 14 in cash flow. Yeah, I'd buy this. I don't know if I'd get the greatest return in the world, but the safety of such a big company kind of compensates for the lower return. I also would have to look at Airbus pretty carefully if I wanted to buy this stock, because I want to see if they lost share. Or like the kind of good thing for them is that COVID happened around the same time of their safety problems. So like they normally would have lost a ton of share, but they ended up kind of, I think, not losing a bunch of share, if I'm not mistaken. But again, these contracts play out over such long durations that it's not clear. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about your brother, Patrick. DMD is something very close to my heart, as you know. That breaks my heart. There really should be a drug for Duchenne. I started my most famous company trying to make a drug for Duchenne, and yeah, it's tough. It's one of the toughest medical problems, and only somebody really, really smart could figure it out. And I wanted to be that person, but the reality of starting a drug company and trying to maintain a profit and make your shareholders happy, but also do great science, difficult. It's very difficult. And I wanted to spend some time building a stronger company that I could then tackle a problem like that. With the limited gifts I have. But it wasn't meant to be. There's a lot of diseases like that that really can rock a whole family, and they're very, very tough. You know, the people that suffer are the patient and the family. And I couldn't imagine how hard that would be. All right, let's keep going here. We're getting closer and closer to some answers on Boeing. I think they'll, I mean, clearly to play this stock, you just sort of have to have a sense for, is this turnaround happening or not? And that's something that'll, you know, it could take many years. There are many examples of companies like this that sort of had these big problems. Johnson & Johnson had them for many years. There was a company called American Home Products that had one a long time ago that I was knee-deep in. Amex had one very famously that Warren Buffett took advantage of. So, like, there isn't necessarily quality issues are sometimes great opportunities. Quality issues can be solved. If they linger long enough, it hurts the brand. But Boeing has a brand that's... Are you really not going to take a Boeing airplane? No, I don't think Boeing's brand is as low as it can be. I still go on a Boeing airplane. Stranded astronauts, not good. All right, this is kind of interesting. Like, before their peak in 2018, they were doing like 6 or 7 or 8 of free cash flow. So one has to wonder, is that more steady state representative of the kind of cash flow you can expect from Boeing? If that's the case, let's call it 7. That's not cheap. 20 times. So you really got to understand the airline business, commercial airplane business, and I don't. I don't know jack shit about airplanes. Why in 2018 and 2017 did they have such big earnings? It's not too expensive. Like it's very very attractive in some ways, but like it's not, you know, jump up and down, buy this tomorrow kind of thing. So it's a tough one for me, especially since I don't know the space. No pun intended. Okay, what other stocks should I look at? I'm going to ask my Godelians. These guys have had great stock picks, honestly. They gave me Iovance and they gave me Zoom. Yeah, BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed could be interesting. All right, this guy wanted me to do WBD, which is that's the big media company, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Warner Brothers Discovery. My internet's like super slow, or my Chrome browser is super slow. I've been needing to restart this computer for like days and days. All right, let me see here. Actually, yeah, like you can see, like these are not the companies I look at. Toyota, Raytheon, Union Pacific, Lockheed, Caterpillar, Deere, Porsche, Airbus, Volkswagen. Like I don't know anything about these companies. I don't do industrial, you know. And it's also asking me to look at a media company, and I don't do media. So of course for my customers, I'll do anything. So of course I'll give it a stab, but it's also probably gonna be multiple hours of work, because to even catch up to like, what do these guys even do? How do they do it? It's like very tough for me, because I try to be intellectually honest. Like I don't want to be like giving you an opinion like really quickly without like serious work. But Boeing definitely, I mean, I can't imagine that they're not going to do everything they can to get quality right? Like, they have to be doing everything they can at this point. Have they permanently lost some brand against like Airbus? Maybe, but I still think they're just gonna, you know, it's gonna stay, you know, the way it is, or the way it was. But it's just not like, with large cap stocks, like a 30% return is good. With small cap stocks, a 30% return is not even worth your time. So it's like a very tricky thing.